But white people, they don't want white, a genetic recessive trait, to disappear. So I have spoken to audiences of white people and asked them, do you want your children to be colored? Do you want your grandchildren to be colored? Do you want your great-grandchildren to be colored? Do you want your great-great-great-grandchildren to be colored? I'm polite and they're polite. What do they say?
Hey, call me Louis. This is my spot. LuiSpot.
Because the big, huge problem of racism, this man had found the key that we're dealing with a total system. So then from that point, I started wondering, well, why would a group of people who call themselves white, why would they set up such a system on this planet? Not in Washington, D.C., on this planet. And one day I was in my apartment, washing dishes, cooking, and the brain computer came with a printout. And I started thinking, see, if you put a question in your mind, why? You are telling your brain computer, bring in data to answer the question. And little children magically understand that. Because when they're 2 and they begin to start talking and thinking, and they keep saying, why? Why? You see, and grown-ups get annoyed, but the child is trying to understand cause and effect on this planet, in this world that they have been brought into. So I had been saying, but why would they do it? Mr. Fuller would say, Francis, it's not important. Why? Just learn what they do. But I was still, as a psychiatrist, but why would they do it? So I started thinking about some of the things that people who classify themselves as white would say about black people. The first thing, they were always saying that they were genetically superior to us. How many people remember hearing that? Like all the time. So I thought about that. The other thing that I thought about was they referred to the people of color on the planet, the black, brown, red, and yellow people, all of them having pigmentation due to the black pigment melanin, that they were minorities. And so I started thinking, wait a minute, in other words, I've been in their schools a long time. Number one, they are a tiny minority. They are fewer than 1/10 of the people on this planet. Instead of black people being genetically inferior, black people are genetically dominant to people who classify themselves as white. The ability to produce the black pigment that causes our skin to have coloration is a genetically dominant trait. If anybody doesn't understand what I'm talking about, all you have to do is think about our president, Barack Obama. His mother was white. His father was black. Black is a genetically dominant trait. White is a genetic recessive trait. A dominant plus a recessive always equals a dominant. So there's no way a white person plus a black person is going to get a white person. They had an opportunity on all the plantations to study that for hundreds of years. You never come up with anything other than a shade of black. So once that came into my brain computer, I really said, I've got it. That's the answer. You know, I didn't tear up my kitchen, but I said, that's the answer. Because during the 15th century, everybody knows about Columbus sailed, the first person out of Europe to begin circumnavigating the planet. Well, many other so-called explorers and discoverers came after him. What they found out was that every place they landed, there were colored people. Colored people everywhere. No white people other than that tiny, tiny area across the Mediterranean, north of Africa, that is called Europe. And so then the men on those voyages, if the women were either subdued or if they were extremely hospitable, after there was sexual contact between the white men and the women of color, and they waited around 9 months to get their boats repaired, they found out that all the children ended up looking like their mothers. And so I don't know whether they built a big institution to study genetics. Basically, really, they didn't have a major science of genetics at that point. But they realized, what if these colored men of color got in their boats and started going from south to north and descended on Europe? And that's happening today.
That's right.
They understood that if this happened, if this was allowed to happen, that's why a lot of the black people who were trying to get into Europe, they let the boats drown, or let the people drown in those boats. But they realized that white would disappear. And so I said, this is the answer, and this is the key to racism. I mean, people are accustomed to saying and thinking racism means you can't use this water fountain. You can't sit on this toilet. You can't shop in this store. Or you can't do this, or you can't be in that hotel, and on and on and on. But underneath all of those surface things is the awareness on the part of people who classify themselves as white, that they could be genetically annihilated and they could disappear. I maintain that Abraham Lincoln, when he emancipated us from formal enslavement, Abraham Lincoln concluded that he could not make the black people social equals of whites, because he understood, even though he didn't talk about it openly, that if everybody was allowed to do, and this is Dr. Martin Luther King's home state. Dr. Martin Luther King talked about people should learn how to love and respect and only focus on character. But imagine what would have happened if all the people of color and all of the white people in this area of the world and even throughout the world, if everybody just embraced. And, you know, somebody like Rodney King said, why can't we all just get along? Now, those are wonderful ideas. But if everybody just loved and everybody just got along and nobody paid any attention to skin color, what would happen? White people would disappear. Now, some black people may not understand how important that is to white people. Because black people under white supremacy have been trained to want color to disappear. But white people, they don't want white, a genetic recessive trait, to disappear. So I have spoken to audiences of white people and asked them, do you want your children to be colored? Do you want your grandchildren to be colored? Do you want your great-grandchildren to be colored? Do you want your great, great, great grandchildren to be colored? I'm polite and they're polite. What do they say?
No. They say
No. So I simply say, if you mean that, then you will have to do certain specific things in all of the areas of people activity: economics, education, entertainment, labor, law, politics, religion, sex, and war, to prevent that from happening on a planet where the people are overwhelmingly black, brown, red, and yellow. And this is what the people who classify themselves as white are doing that is responsible for all of the discomfort that we experience as black people, as black women, as black men, as black children. And what is very important for us to understand, and I say that racism is war against black people in general, but black men in particular.
Now, that sums it up for this video. What do you guys think? Share thoughts and opinions in the comment section below. Let's have a proper discussion about this without having me impose my opinions and ideas on this matter. Give this video a thumbs up if you liked it, so that the YouTube algorithm can know that this video was so much interesting and share it far wide to more avid viewers just like you. Subscribe and click the notification bell if this is your first time watching these videos, and so that you can be notified as soon as we make a new upload on videos just like this. My name is Louis. Until next time, peace out.